All right. Welcome everyone to another episode of No Ordinary Conversation. The podcast that I do here is really designed to get to know people, to really understand what it is, who they are, those life experiences that made them what they are today. Um, and to be quite honest, that's why I choose the older folks. Uh, the little bit grayer in the beard sort of folk because I, I know a ton of people in their 30s and 40s. I mean, I'm 49, but it's really hard to take a look at your life that you've lived and understand um, the big picture. If you're in your 30s, your perspective on life is completely different than in your 40s, and if you're in your 60s, you have a completely different outlook on the life that you lived, what it is you would have liked to have done versus what you actually did, the things that you did that maybe you're not real happy with, and then just kind of a state of where you see things going. Those perspectives change over time, and that's why I kind of like to grab the older guys and gals who can reflect back and put everything in the context that is a little bit more interesting in my opinion. So with us today, we have Tom Martin. Tom Martin is otherwise known as Ghost. Uh, he owns the Leatherneck Bar in Las Vegas. Is that the correct way to phrase that, Leatherneck Bar?
Yeah, Leatherneck Club Bar and Grill, Las Vegas.
Leatherneck Club Bar and Grill, Las Vegas. For the crowd, his volume for his mic's a bit low, so if you have to jack the volume a little bit, that's fine. But so to provide a little bit of background on, because I never served with Ghost on active duty. Um, just real quick, I mean that's only a portion of what we want to talk about. What were your years of service?
1986 to 91.
86 to 91. Okay. Um, so I came in 93. Ghost and I never served together, but one of the high points in my career was my opportunity to serve on Marine security guard duty, otherwise better known as embassy guard duty. Um, and when I walked into the Leatherneck Bar and Grill in Vegas, it the ambiance was, and that's a strange word for a Marine to use, but the ambiance was straight up Marine house in some middle of fuck nowhere Africa, and
Yeah,
in a good way. I
yeah,
mean, the walls are covered with memorabilia, um, and not only is it just the surroundings, but it's the people. I mean, honestly, Ghost, your staff there is incredible.
thank you.
Um, I really felt that's the first time I felt, I think, since leaving MSG duty, like I especially definitely after leaving active duty, like I've been back around Marines again. That feeling of camaraderie and just instant um, an understanding of what the other person is and who they are.
Yeah, it's something that we focus on very hard here. And not all of my employees are veterans. Some of them are, but not all of them. And one of the things that I emphasize upon them is that we are here every day. We see the artifacts every day. We get to do what we do every day. And for us, it sometimes becomes humdrum. But when those Marines walk in this door for their very first time, it is their very first time. And they're walking into a brand new environment that they're very familiar with and are going to immediately be comfortable with. But it's our job to make sure that they feel as though this is their home. That's why we do this. And
Man, you
it's their first time. So you gotta hit it on that first time.
you fucking hit a home run.
Thank you.
That's all I
Thank you.
gotta say.
That's our objective every single time. We get that brand new Marine that comes in here. I mean, I got Marines that have been coming here for 22 years, and I still love those Marines, and I still give them all the respect in the world, and we still take care of them like they're a brand new Marine. But when we know there's a brand new Marine that walks in this place, and we know it by the look in your eyes. We know it by how you go,
Kind of
oh, yeah, exactly. Or you're taking a picture out in front of the doors, or you're doing whatever. We know it's a first time Marine walking in, and we gear for that as soon as we see that happening. And those little cues set us up to know, okay, this is somebody we're going to talk to about the museum artifacts, what it's located where, how to navigate, from World War I to World War II to Korea, get through all those different things, and at the same time making sure that we're hospitable, offering you a drink, offering you something good to eat. That's what we do.
no, you guys hit a home run. No, it really. It's funny. I kind of giggled there in the background because I've got a. So we were talking about sound from your end, right? And I was screwing with the speaker. I got a Bose speaker here, and I was screwing with it, trying to get your sound to sound better. And I couldn't get you to come up in volume. Well, I just realized I was screwing with my wife's TV in the living room instead of the speaker next to me. So, anyways, um, no, it's that really it was amazing, and I mean not only JP at the bar, not only you, but your other patrons that were there that I could tell are the patrons that are there probably 2 or 3 times a week.
Sure.
Leroy,
Yep.
there's another gentleman there that does a lot of work at Heights for like concerts.
Mm-hmm.
Just I don't know, it was just really fucking cool. It
Yeah.
really was. I mean, I've that's the first that another place that kind of your place reminds me a little bit of. I don't know if you ever in Camp Lejeune. I'm assuming you were in Camp Lejeune maybe at some point, maybe.
Yeah, I was.
So there's a place out in town called Schwinnicki's or something like that.
Swankies.
Swankies.
Unfortunately closed.
What?
So the sergeant major that owned Swankies
Yeah.
passed.
That sucks.
Left it all to his family, hoping that his family would keep it running or find another old sergeant major or somebody who wanted to take it over and continue it on. And unfortunately, it looks like nobody ever did.
That sucks.
And everything that was inside that building went to auction about 2 years ago.
Oh, the auction?
Yeah, all the artifacts.
Man.
So it's so personal. It's so personal. I mean, the artifacts that we have at the Leatherneck Club, for 38 years, customers have been bringing those artifacts in. We've never purchased a single artifact that's in here.
Oh, really? Okay.
Now, everything's been given to us by the customers, and we have them on the back of every artifact in here. Little nameplate, write your name on it, contact information. In case something was to ever happen, we want to make sure that gets back to the rightful people.
That's cool.
We don't want it to go to auction,
And I don't want to compare your place to Swankies, but it's the closest thing I've found with that atmosphere. I mean, his is definitely different. It was much more of a restaurant type feel.
It was, and it
yours
was
is a bar,
collared shirt mandatory, and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Sergeant Major, he's like, yeah, you're gonna have rules when you walk into my place.
Yeah, it's like that was a Sergeant Major's place. Yours is a Master Gun's place.
Yeah, ours is truly a corporal sergeant. Yeah,
I fucking love it. It was really cool. So, all right, so that provides some context. I tell you, whenever I come through Vegas, I will be hitting up Stop and for a beer for sure. Food was fantastic too for anybody who's interested.
We want best burger in Vegas.
Damn right. But talking to you when I was there, I was fascinated just by your story as well. So I wanted to kind of get in. Part of the reason I started doing this podcast is I watch podcasts with like the Sean Ryan show or some of these others where they have well-known military members. And to be honest, I don't even really focus my podcast towards military members. It doesn't have to be a military member, but it's just that's generally the people I know well, right? But they have these interviews with these well-known individuals, and they get an opportunity to really tell their story. And it occurred to me one day, I was like, every one of us has a story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think every one of us deserves an opportunity to tell that story and put it out there in a way that you or I would want it to be put out there, whoever's telling it, right? And that's really the reason I do this is number one, to get to know people. Number two, gives an opportunity to kind of frame their life in a way that makes sense to them. If you get hit by a car tomorrow, or if I get hit by a car tomorrow, your story will be out there, and your grandkids can see it, and whoever can see it. So that's why I kind of cover the entire lifespan. I don't just focus on the military career, which I guess probably maybe some people might expect that I would. But I'm really interested in everything because it's the small things in my mind. It's the smallest of circumstances and experiences that shapes a person's personality and sends them in different directions. That if that 5-minute conversation hadn't occurred, you'd have never done that. Just a quick example, I was at a retirement ceremony for a gunny one time, and he's giving maybe his staff sergeant. Anyways, he was giving his retirement speech, and he goes, "And I'd like to thank Chief Officer Scabina for getting me started in college." And I'm like, "What? What are you talking about? I got an associate's degree from an online university. I'm not exactly the guy to look up to here." So I called him afterwards, like, "What are you talking about, man?" He's like, "You and I had a conversation where you recommended American Military University, and I looked at it, and now he's got his bachelor's and he's doing whatever." And it was just that little conversation that sent him off this direction. And I guarantee from there, he's impacted people's lives in other ways, that he never even considered himself. So, anyways, that's kind of why I do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Plus, I'm just fascinated by people. So, all right. So, when and where were you born?
Fresno, California,
No shit.
1967.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. We didn't stay there
Where,
very long. Not very long.
okay.
My dad was a milkman, and my grandparents. My grandfather was in the Navy. He
Okay.
was a 3-war Navy man, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. And at that time, he was still in the Navy, and he got stationed out on the East Coast. So we, as a family, all moved to the East Coast, Florida area.
Your grandfather was the guy.
Yeah, yeah.
So you moved with your grandparents.
No, it just that the family was so close that when the
Okay.
grandparents moved, the rest of the family followed them as long.
Gotcha.
My father served in the Army in Vietnam, so he'd already gotten out. We are now his children, so we ended up moving out there. Stayed in Florida for a number of years until my grandfather got reassigned back to the West Coast, Alameda, California. Ended up back in California, and now we're, maybe 5, 6-year-old kids, and then we end up in Tucson, Arizona for some reason. Don't know why. Just out of the blue, we're in Tucson. That's where I did elementary school, did all that stuff, junior high, and just basic kid, riding dirt bikes up and down the washes and, going to school and getting bad grades and, doing all that kind of stuff. And I was just being a kid,
Average kid in the 70s, right?
just average kid, and, hoping not to get caught by the cops when we took the dirt bike from one wash to the other by going across the different streets and, getting back home and, having them take us home and tell our mother that we had our bikes on the streets and, get punished at home and stuff. But yeah, grew up riding dirt bikes, having fun, simple life. My father and my mother got divorced, and my father ended up through work getting transferred to Denver, Colorado for his warehouse. I saw it as an opportunity to get out of Tucson, been there most of my life, so I moved to Denver, Aurora to be exact. Not the
How old
Aurora.
were you? How old when you did that?
Probably about a freshman in high school. So
Okay.
15, 16 years old. And it's Aurora, Colorado back then is not the Aurora, Colorado everybody knows of now in the news. It's not, migrants taking over apartment complexes and all this other crap. Back then it was a pretty decent little town. The high school I was going to was only 5 years old. It was a brand new high school in that area. So I went to high school there. I was a horrible student. Didn't like going to high school. Got a job at the age of 15 years old and thought my shit didn't stink because I had money. And I didn't have a lot of money, just minimum wage, but I had
That's
money.
some though.
Right? And my father, about the age of 17 years old, got transferred to Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm like, nope, I'm not going. I'm staying here. So I emancipated so I could be in charge of my own self and do whatever I needed to do. And ended up just
Really?
couch surfing for about a year, kept working, stayed at different friends' homes, stuff like that. And I'd always known I wanted to be a Marine. That's been on my radar since I was about 12 years old.
So before we go down that too far, I want to take you back a little bit.
Yeah.
When you moved with your grandparents, was he like a constant influence in your life, or was your dad more of an influence, or both, or?
At that age in my life, I was so young that my father was the number one influence.
Okay.
My grandfather was just what they call it, the patriarch of the family. It's what Grandpa said. Kind of everybody followed suit. And so, like I said, when they moved, the family followed because of the tight knitness of the family. I refer to it like an Italian family, where the Italian families go to their
Yep.
parents' home every Sunday for, gravy or whatever you're going to call it. Ours was kind of that same way back then. And it was just, we were always together on Sundays as a family, grandma and grandpa, the family, we go to their house, they come to our house, just the way we did it.
What is your family's heritage? Is it Italian?
Anglo-Saxon American. Yeah. Just basic mutts.
Just run of the mill mutt.
Yep. That's it. No real, I mean, what do they call it? A Heinz 57. I mean, there's so many different things in my blood. So yeah, nothing specific like that. It was just, it was the 60s and the 70s. It was still, before Atari, before, any of that kind of, there was no video games back then. There was no cell phones back then. There was no computers back then. You went out to play. You truly went out to play. Whether it was with a Tonka truck and the pea gravel as a kid, making mounds of rocks or stickball down the street with the other kids in the neighborhood, or wiffle ball, or whatever we were doing.
Good old days.
The good old days. When times were simpler, I guess is the right way to say it. So yeah, as a family, we moved, and we moved because Grandpa was in the Navy, and so it got me a chance to see a little part of the country.
Did you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah, older brother, younger sister. Okay. Yeah, we're each
close?
about a year and a half apart from each other.
Gotcha. You still pretty close with them?
No. I talk to my brother maybe once every 2 or 3 years. I talk to my sister maybe once every 3 or 4 years.
It's funny. Even families who were close, back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, you find they're just not that close anymore. It's in a day and age where you could be so connected.
Yeah,
it's interesting to find where you're not really connected.
We grew up in a household where at the earliest age you were going to go get a job.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to help with the family. At the age of 18, there was an expectation that you are going to get your life rolling, whether that's college, whether it's military, whether it's whatever it is. That's the age that you are now grown up. There was no expectation that we were going to stay at home. There was no, okay, well, hope you go find a job. You can't live in the basement for the rest of your life.
Sucks to be homeless.
There was no expectation of that. Yeah, I mean, your 18th year of being in age, and that Christmas you get tourist or luggage.
Yeah,
you're not going on a trip. You're just moving. So
it's interesting too, because I mean I'm a few years younger than you, not too many years younger. I mean, 60, so 8 years. But very very much the same with me as well. My dad was like, "Look, you're 18 and out of high school, go. I don't care where you go. I don't care what you do, but go.
Yeah,
you're not staying at home."
Yep. And if you were staying at home, it was because you were a full-time college student. That was probably the only way that you could be able to stay at home in our house.
Yeah. No, that's even with my kids, my stepdaughter who's 27, I kind of took that approach with, and I probably shouldn't have been as much of a hard ass about that as I was. Kind of created a little bit of friction that was unnecessary, and started her life off probably a little bit rougher than it was necessary. But as much as I think that was right for probably you and I, there's no way I would take that tack with my younger kids. Now,
yeah,
my oldest is 19, my youngest is 17. There's even my youngest who's incredibly goal oriented, incredibly successful in what she does. I wouldn't feel comfortable kicking her out at 18 if she wasn't ready to do it herself.
Yeah, I could agree with that 100%. I had two stepsons. I have two stepsons. And I had the mentality of, when you're 18, I hope you have a good job. I hope you have goals. I hope you are achieving something.
Yeah.
And they're now in their 30s, and we still have friction because of that. It's generational. And I have no friction with my parents because of it, because it was generational. That's just what you did back then.
It was expected.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting. Was your family religious at all?
Nope. I mean,
Nope.
I will tell you at a very young age, my father drove the Sunday school bus. We went to Sunday school every Sunday. Um, my parents didn't go to church, but all of us kids did. And that was just
Hmm.
part of what we did. And we did that till we were probably about 12, 13 years old. And then it was our choice at that time. Once we became a teenager, your choice. You don't want to go to church, you don't have to. 100% on you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you had
We were
said
Southern
earlier
Baptist.
that was that?
We were Southern Baptist. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay. You had said earlier it was about 12 that you like. That was a point where you're like, I want to be a Marine. What was it? Was it a movie? Was it a?
It was. I never did. Even at that young of an age, I hated school, and I just school was just never my thing. I do well at math. I do well at a lot of different things. I just can't apply those things onto pen and paper in a classroom setting. I
Right.
can do it fine, for myself for financial reasons, my business financial reasons, but I just couldn't apply it to pen and paper. And I'm like, my grandfather, career Navy guy, he told me about those Marines that were on those ships. And I'm like, I'm gonna be a Marine someday. And you do see movies like Sands at Iwo Jima, and you see this and you see that, and you're like, yeah, you see that uniform. And as I continued to grow, that was still my number one. This is what I'm gonna do. I'm
Did
gonna
you
go.
ever have anything else
Nope,
that you ever considered?
nope, nope.
Interesting.
100%. All the way through high school. I mean, I started talking to recruiters my freshman year. I was
That's
in the
interesting.
pulley program for the whole year before shipping.
Okay.
Went to every pulley function I could go to, and anybody I found out was a Marine, I talked to them about it. I got all the horror stories about Firewatch and this and that, and it was, but they prepared me well for what I was going to get involved in because they knew I was serious about it, and it wasn't just like
Right.
I got nothing better to do, so I might as well join the Marines.
Gotcha. Yeah. For me, I knew I was always going to go in the military or law enforcement, and my uncle had been in the Army, so that kind of naturally where I was moving towards. I obviously ended up in the Marine Corps, but as a result, I never really I in high school I did the bare minimum of what I needed to do to get out of the high school. Like if I got the bare minimum grades, bare minimum classes. I just wanted because I knew I didn't need it for the Marine Corps, right?
Right.
I just I needed a graduation certificate, and that was it.
See, we didn't at our time. We didn't need that certificate at my time, and I didn't get one.
Okay.
I didn't
Oh,
graduate.
really?
No, I went in without a
Holy darn.
GED, without a diploma, and at that time it was all hunky dory. You're no problem. You want to be a Marine. You don't have a serious felony record, and you tell us you don't smoke dope. Okay, you're good. And
Did you ever consider going back and getting that?
it wasn't a consideration. It was mandatory. About 2 years in, the Marine Corps came out with a rule saying you have to have an equivalency of a GED or
Oh,
better.
really?
So they made everybody that was still active duty in go to this giant auditorium on Camp Lejeune in front of these proctors. And we studied for 3 days, and then we took a GED test at the end of those 3 days. And if you passed it, you got your GED.
What happens if you didn't pass it?
You went to that class again.
You just kept cycling
Yep.
through. Sooner or later, you're gonna pass it.
Sooner or later, you're going to pass it, or you're going to get out of the Marine Corps. One of the two.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
That's wow. Huh?
Yeah, there was
Okay.
about 10 guys from my company that were without high school diplomas or equivalencies, and we all had to go there together.
So let's see. What type of work did you do when you were still in high school?
My very first job was just being a dishwasher, local bowling alley. Working in a little restaurant at the bowling alley. A buddy of mine worked at Kmart. And he said, "Hey, the garden center's hiring for the spring, summer, fall." He said,
Yep.
"Probably pays a little bit better." So I went over to Kmart,
It
and
was like the Stone Age Walmart, right? Kmart.
Yeah. It was very simple. I mean, back in the day when our credit card readers were with a machine that you went back and forth with, and it had
Yep.
it took an imprint of your card, and Yeah, very simple. I just worked in the garden center. I learned to drive a forklift, learned to about plants, all that kind of stuff, and enjoyed it. I moonlighted and I did carpet installing on weekends when I wasn't working at Kmart, and helped out a bunch of guys doing carpet installing, and 4 o'clock in the morning being at some big business tower and laying carpet all day long. And, yeah, just
You're far more motivated than I was at that age.
well, again, I was living on my own, so
Yeah, true.
parents were in
Yeah.
Georgia, so I had nothing to fall back on other than my friends and their families, and I wasn't going to ask any of them for any financial assistance. They were charitable enough by allowing me to hang out with their kid and maybe crash in their room for a couple days.
Wow. Interesting. So, all right. So somewhere in '85, you went in the delayed entry program.
Yeah, it was probably about July of '85.
Did you know what your MOS was going to be, or were you open contract, or?
I knew what I wanted to be. I knew what I scored on the ASVAB and was told what my options were.
What did you want to be?
So I wanted to be a grunt. That was absolute. But my recruiter knew my desire was to, after I get out of the military, if I don't stay in for a career, was to go into law enforcement. Kind of like what you said for yourself. You're going to go military or law enforcement. I wanted to do military first, then go law enforcement. And he says, well, I got a deal for you. We'll get you slated.
That's a famous recruiter line.
Right. He says, you're going to be in 0311, but I'm going to send you first. Your first tour of duty is going to be security forces.
That's right.
You'll be like a cop. And I'm like, oh, okay. That sounds interesting. He says, it's kind of like embassy duty, but you're in this country, but you're like a cop. You're guarding gates and you're doing this, you're doing that. And I'm like, okay, sounds cool. But I'm still a grunt. And he says, yeah, you're still a grunt.
Forces. Yep.
So yeah, so I enlisted, went to infantry training school in San Diego, Santa Onofre. And from there, my first duty station was Yorktown Naval Weapons Station, Virginia.
Well, so obviously boot camp was San Diego.
Yeah.
When were you there?
September of '86 until just the third week of December, and then we went home for an extended leave because it was the holiday. So instead of just the normal 7 days in between, I think we were home for almost 14 days before we had to come back to check in for infantry training school.
How was boot camp for you? I assume doing all that work and supporting yourself, you were pretty mature at that point, so it was probably...
I felt as though I was. I mean, it wasn't... the mental toughness of it was the hardest part of it. I mean, it was just, just the hindsight looking back on it, it's so easy to look at it and go, oh, that's what it was. And that's how they did it. And, but at the time, you're just a scared little 18-year-old kid, with this, I don't know, 28-year-old that you think is 110 years old yelling at you.
Yeah. You think he's a war hero. And
exactly. Yeah.
Who knows, he's probably pushing a fucking pin around the place.
There was no war heroes at that time. We hadn't been in war since Vietnam.
Yeah.
So, everybody had, 3 ribbons, and one of my drill instructors was an admin clerk, and another one was like a motor T guy. So it was, but you don't learn that till afterwards. You don't learn what their MOSs were while you're in there. You just think they're all badass warriors, no matter what they were. So did that, and then infantry training school right after the first of the new year, and this is before. This is before they had all the stuff they have now.
Yeah, so you and I went about the same, because I went in September. I mean, it was obviously a few years later.
Right.
But I actually ended up graduating. I was in a medical platoon for a couple months. So I graduated in February. But I remember being in Pendleton in February, and it was freaking cold.
Well, it's cold as hell.
Some of the coldest I've ever been was running around the mountains of Pendleton in the spring.
I mean, you're right off that coastline. Those coastal breezes blowing in that cold weather. It's
cold. That was cold. People wouldn't think it. They're thinking, it's sunny California. Bullshit, it's cold.
Well, I mean, I guess the only blessing of that was your mornings were super frigid, your nights were frigid, but your daytimes, if you had to hump 20 miles, not so bad. I'll take 60-degree weather to hump in instead of 100 degree. Yeah, the night times and the mornings getting up out of those hooches was damn cold.
Oh, yeah. That's yeah. No, I remember that. I remember being surprised, like thinking it's freaking California. This place is supposed to be warm, but it wasn't. All right. So USS Yorktown, USS Yorktown,
No,
or
Naval Weapons Station.
Naval Weapons Station Yorktown. Okay.
Yeah.
So, first of all, how was security forces? Well, how was the school itself? Was there a separate school for it, or
No school back then. No,
really?
nothing. You went straight from infantry school, straight to the Naval Weapons Station. You got assigned a platoon. You got assigned a barracks room. And from there you went. And within the first 48 hours of being there, after you checked in with admin, you've done all the stuff, you got the lay of the land, you're
Do you,
going as an assistant guard on some shack, some truck, some gate. And you're going to start learning the process, and that's how you're going to learn it. You're going to learn how to clear a weapon in a barrel. You're going to do all these different things. You're going to understand what broken arrow is. You're going to understand what bent spear is, and you're going to know the password of the day and all these different things. And it was just fired at you. And then back then we would do 3 days off, 2 days on. I'm sorry,
okay.
3 days on, 2 days off. And there was only 3 companies, so that's how it rotated. So you were 6 days a week, 5 days a week, just churning. Then you get a good little gap off, and then you back to churning again. And it was 12 on, 12 off when you were on duty. So you were either working days or graves. So you're going to get 12 hours on post and then 12 hours of sleep, back and forth.
How long was the tour then? Was it a year tour, 2-year tour?
Yeah, it's I think it's 17 months, 18 months. Yeah, a year and a half basically. I hurt myself while I was there. We were doing an early morning PT run, and I'd already broken my ankle twice, so I had pretty weak ankle, and
For a grunt, that sucks.
yeah. So running, hit a pothole in the dark, just rolled the ankle, tore all the tendons in it, swelled up like a baseball.
You say that, and it reminds me. I remember being on active duty, being full retard, going out there running in the dark, and there was always some kid that was smarter than me, and be like, "Is this? Should we really be running in the dark? Is this kind of stupid? Like, shut up and run." But now looking back now, you're like, it's fucking dumb. Running in the dark is dumb.
When we were infantry training school, if we ran in the dark, depending on the time of year, because of the way the sun was rising, it was mandatory to have a moonbeam. You had to have a moonbeam with you, right?
Moonbeams.
Yeah. The plastic, stupid flashlight with changeable lenses,
Yeah. It's funny to look back and think, wow, that was dumb. That was just some dumb shit we did. But we thought it was so normal. We thought it was dumb if we didn't do it that way.
And you look back on it now, and it's like, was that training or was that hazing?
Just dumb.
Yeah.
It was just dumb. I really think, I don't think it was hazing per se. I think it was just being dumb.
I think it was also generational. I think that's what the leaders before did, and that's what the leaders before them did, and that's what the leaders after them did. You get up at 5 a.m. and you go for a run. That way you're ready to do everything else by 7 a.m. Go to chow, be at the office, do whatever you got to do. But yeah.
What was your favorite part of security force duty?
Where we were stationed.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was Yorktown, Virginia, an old, very historic Civil War town. We were right next to Colonial Williamsburg. Newport News was right down the road. Hampton Roads, Virginia Beach, Norfolk. It's all within a little bit of a drive all around that area. There was just always something to do. If you wanted to go to
Were you allowed to have a POV?
What's that?
Were you allowed to have your own personal vehicle at that point?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, we weren't allowed to have an infantry training school, but at the first duty station, you were allowed to have one.
And see, I don't even know what they do anymore, but I'd imagine that things have changed quite a bit. But I remember it just being normal, like talking to my friends when I went back home on leave or whatever, to be like, "Do you have a car?" Like, no, I can't have a car yet. No, what do you mean you can't have a car? That's just how it is.
Yeah.
What was it about security forces duty that you disliked the most?
The fuck games.
Yeah.
That was it. I mean, because security forces is such a humdrum job and responsibility. I
Yep.
mean, we're sitting on a base full of nuclear weapons. We have a dock that submarines roll up to accept nuclear weapons and little frigates. We if we're in the movement of those nuclear weapons on that base that day, we are all facing outboard, never to look at the weapon. M16 at the ready, flak jacket, helmet. But the water where the sub or the frigate's being loaded is where any enemy coming is going to come from, but we're not allowed to look at it. So we stood the whole time with our backs, like this. And because it was so humdrum, when something wasn't going on, the NCOs like to play games to keep you on your toes, to make sure you weren't falling asleep on post or whatever it was. And and they'd like sneak up on your post and try to, do it. It was just, like I said, fucked up games.
I can see the propensity for that.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure. So that was 17 months. So that would have put you about halfway through your 4 years. Where'd you go after that?
1st Battalion, 8th Marines, Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, 2nd Marine Division.
Okay.
And I was assigned to Delta Company. And at that time, I had no idea what any of the company structure meant or anything, because I didn't know at that time there was no Delta companies in the grunts. It was Alpha Bravo Charlie, and it would skip Delta, and then it would move on Echo, and so there's no Deltas.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and on the East Coast or West Coast, there's Deltas in the tanks, there's Deltas in artillery, there's Deltas in all these other ones, just not the grunts.
Is there a reason?
No, not that I know of, but it just it has never. Back in that era, and still to this day, there's still no Deltas in there. So General Al Gray was our commandant, and he was trying this specialty project, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast. Delta Company was his project. And that's the unit I got assigned to, which for me made never mind, didn't bother me at all.
Yeah,
I didn't know any different. I didn't know what that meant. But now we are a 4-company line, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, instead of a 3-company line, and weapons, of course. The only thing it made a difference about was training. Delta Company, as I learned, our objective was to be trained in Alpha, Bravo, Charlie's jobs. So
you became like a reserve for the other companies.
We were the sponge.
Gotcha.
We are to fill billets. So if a squad gets decimated over here, we can move a squad directly into their position, know exactly what their job was, be able to use the tools they were using and the weapons they were using, and move forward.
Interesting.
Yeah. Sounds legitimate, right?
Yeah. It sounds like something you'd be doing anyways. I'm surprised. Yeah.
But what ended up making it kind of cool is because we already had the tracks, we already had the boats, we already had, everything else. What that unit did not have, and most line companies don't have, is a helo company.
Oh.
So we became the helo company. So when everybody else was tracking, humping, whatever, we were going from LZ to LZ.
Oh, hell yeah.
So it was great for us. Yeah. So we weren't too upset about being Delta Company, because we got to do all their other jobs, but we also got to helo everywhere. So it made it pretty cool.
So I have to imagine going from where you were stationed on security force duty to Camp Lejeune was a complete culture change, because Camp Lejeune is its own little strange place, and it's by itself.
It is.
And I imagine in the 80s it was even more so.
Yeah, I mean, security force duty, Naval Weapons Station, Yorktown, small town, small base vibe, 3 companies of Marines, a number of sailors on base, and a lot of CBs, and a lot of civilians, right? Going to Camp Lejeune, I mean, we always talk about how you can always remember what cash sales smelled like.
True.
Camp Lejeune smelled like cash sales to me. Just camouflage everywhere, wool socks everywhere, black boots everywhere. It smelled like cash sales to me.
So, go ahead.
I was just saying, so it was a totally different vibe because there was military everywhere.
Everywhere.
The chow hall we ate at Yorktown, so did the civilians, so did the Navy. It was almost like eating in a restaurant, except for it was a buffet line, you know.
Yeah.
And going to a chow hall in Camp Lejeune, it's just a sea of camis as far as the
Yep.
eye can see, you know. Even behind the line, they're wearing camis.
Yeah. That's so. I was just thinking about it. I never thought about it before, but that timing that you have there from 86 to 91 is a really unique timing because you either were, and judging by the fact you got out in 91, you weren't. You were either kept on active duty for Desert Storm, or you got out right before it. How did that work out for you?
So Saddam's tanks rolled across the border in August of 90.
Okay, 90. Yep.
My EAS date was September.
And of
We
course, you
were
weren't doing anything by then.
we were on blue green water workups on Vieques Island, Puerto Rico.
Oh, really?
So we were just doing the med workup, and I wasn't close enough to be out that I couldn't go on the blue green water workup. It was only 2 weeks long. Come back, I'll EAS out when we're all done. Well, Saddam's tanks roll across the border while we're out there. So they immediately come and pick us up off the beach of Vieques Island and fly us back to the Iwo Jima, and then start steaming home with the Iwo Jima, and then they pick us up in Helos again, and they fly us the rest of the way back to North Carolina.
Really?
We're the Air Alert battalion for the Marine Corps on the West Coast.
Yeah, it was the AAB or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So we had
I
to have
remember at the Okie they had that going on too. You could
so
get
we had to have
assigned to
all
that.
of our Air Alert gear ready in our wall lockers at all times, on top of what you normally would have. And
Yep.
so we came back, everybody grabbed their packs, got out in formation to make sure everybody had all their Air Alert gear, and then we stand down. And we did that every day for like 5 days straight.
Kind of
And
reminds me of that movie with Heartbreak Ridge.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Going out
yeah,
there in the middle of the night just to be told, oh, it's just drill.
yep. And
Um,
so I went and saw my captain, and I said, Captain, I said, IAS in like 2-3 weeks. I said, I'm a squad leader.
why am I
Why am
training for
I
this?
not staying in for this? And he's
Yeah.
like, well, you want to reenlist? I'm like, I didn't say that. I said, how do I stay in if we do ship, which I'm pretty sure we're going to? How do I stay in for it? And he's like, go upstairs to the S office, see the career jammer, and see what he has to offer. So I go up there, talk to the staff sergeant. He says, you can reenlist or you can extend. I said, okay. Give me the opportunity to extend. Tell me what my options are. He says, well, you can extend for 6 months or you can extend for a year.
You can extend or you can extend.
He said, or you can get out. He says, there's a stop loss coming. We already know it's coming, but it won't go into effect until after you're out. So if you want to stay in, you need to extend. So I said,
Interesting.
tell me what I got to do. He says, I need a letter from your captain. I need a letter from the colonel. I need a letter from the XO and your platoon commander. And I'm like, yeah. And I said, no problem. Went down to the captain, said, this is what I need. He says, I'll make all the phone calls. We'll get it taken care of. And he did. Came back 2 days later, had all these letters already sent up to the career jammer's office. They had documents ready for me to sign. Okay, you're extended. And that was all it took.
So I want to put a pause on the deployment because obviously you went to Iraq then with
Yeah.
Desert Storm. Okay.
Yeah.
But real quick before that, so you were planning on getting out. And I find that curious because you obviously were planning on going to the Corps for so long. What were you thinking when you were getting out? Were you thinking that, being a grunt sucks? I want to do something different. What was going through your head to get out? Because I would have thought that you were thinking career going in.
I was only a corporal at 4
Mhm.
years. My next desire, if I stayed in, was to go to the drill field. That was my desire. I wanted to go be a drill instructor. Out of the question as a corporal at that time.
Right.
You weren't even going to drill instructor school as a corporal and getting a sergeant while you were there. So I knew I didn't have a promotion coming in the next 6 months to a year.
Plus, you got to imagine being a corporal at DI school would just be terrible.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. You would be the short end of the stick on everything, no doubt in my mind.
everything.
So
Speaking
like
of
I said,
fuck games.
yeah, like I said earlier, my desire was to be a Marine and then later go on to law enforcement.
Yep.
So that was where I was moving towards. Was going to go back to Colorado, apply for the local police department, go to the academy, do the thing. So that's the route I was going. My family back in Colorado was already getting documentation for me and getting the tests, the practice tests for me for the police department, all these different things lined up for me. But then Desert Storm kicked.
So tell me about that. How was that for you?
Man, a whole lot of excitement with a whole lot of letdown. I mean,
I've heard that a lot.
Because, well, I mean, it started in August.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't even go over until, and we were the Air Alert Battalion, we didn't even go over until November. And we flew over via TWA, not military. Yeah. TWA planes loaded with our gear and rifles were in the overhead bins. And stewardesses, and back then you could smoke on an airplane.
Yeah, the good old days.
Yeah, so you they used to have. Well, I guess at that time they had smoking sections. Well, because where we were going, they're like, we don't care where you're sitting, smoke if you want.
Yeah,
and you're supposed to wait till you're like so many miles off the coast of America before you can start smoking on the international flights. So he got up in the air, and the first ding went. The captain's like, smoke him if you got him, So. So
probably an old Vietnam vet too, flying.
Yeah, probably, and probably a pilot back then. Yeah. So again, a lot of Air Alert type of situation where it's like, okay, if you're a brown bagger, you can go straight home, straight back, straight home, straight back. You have to have a phone that works at your home, or you can't go home. Because there's no cell phones.
Yep.
And don't divert. You're going to go from base to home. You're going to come from home to base, and this went on for months. And that was including Saturdays and Sundays. And I was a brown bagger room. So I loved having a brown bagger room because I was the only Marine that lived on base in this room. But during all this crap, I had like 7 guys in my room all the time. So it was always overcrowded. But it worked out good on Thursday field day because I had 7 guys cleaning my room. But,
yeah.
But yeah, it was just, okay, we're going. Oh, no, we're not. Okay, we're going. Oh, here's the real deal. Nope, it's not the real deal. We're not going. And that went on for just a couple months. And then finally we go over.
Well, what was it like the moment you realized, like, oh shit, this is it. This is the one. What was that moment?
Frustrating because I had a missing troop.
Okay.
I had no time to reflect about how I felt about it because we were on a manhunt for a missing troop.
Yeah, interesting.
A young PFC, only had been with the unit for about 6 months, straight from infantry school, straight to 1st Battalion, 8th Marines. And I'll go back a second because we're no longer Delta Company. I'll have to tell you that story after we do this. They took Delta Company away. And he went out and married a stripper.
Of course he did.
The kind of stories that you hope are made up, but when you actually have them happen, these kind of stories were never made up. This is reality. This is what stupid, dumb, young Marines
do.
And yeah, he went out and he got married, went to the Justice of the Peace that day. And he didn't know we were leaving that night, but he went out and got drunk with her to celebrate their wedding, blah, 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 blah. And we can't find him. And we are all in a parking lot with all of our gear, waiting for the buses to come to get us to take us to the airport. And we can't find this kid. And all of a sudden, about 2:00 in the morning, he comes stumbling in.
Okay.
There was not an NCO anywhere around anymore. They were all in one room with him, PFC, doing their best to sober him up as quickly as they possibly could, and to get his gear on and to get his ass out on the line. And so we did. We got him out there, and he made the flight with everybody else. He didn't talk much. He didn't answer a lot of questions. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was a very interesting night. We flew through it's called Ramstein Air Force Base in Germany
Mhm.
as the pit
Yep.
stop. They had a USO tent. Nope. There was only 2 payphones at the barracks. So once we got word that we were officially going, of
Oh
course,
man,
there's a line for the phones. So
God,
we're
it's funny. Funny you mention because I just Marines. Nobody today has any idea what that was like when you got secured, trying to make a beeline for the damn phone
yep,
because you weren't there then. You were there for hours waiting your turn.
yep. And
Ah,
so most people never got to contact their family,
hmm.
including our brown baggers, to say they were going.
Wow.
So Mama's still at home waiting for their Marine to come home that night, and he hasn't
And he
come
ain't
home
coming
yet
home.
because he's now in
Wow.
Germany on his way to Saudi. So luckily in Germany at that USO tent was a large phone bank of phones that
Hey,
did
honey,
not
I'm in Germany. I'm not
exactly.
coming home.
Yeah,
Holy smokes!
yeah. Oh, and by the
How
way,
about stress on marriage?
he
Damn.
he he took the POV to base
Oh shit.
because he was coming
So
home.
many. Yeah. Yeah.
He
No.
didn't drop him off.
There's so many things about that a lot of times we often complain about the new core that is kinder and gentler, but there's things like that are just so much better
Yeah,
because that's just such a jacked up way to treat people. It's just wrong.
yeah. So the wives had to find a way to get back on base to get their
Oh,
husbands' cars, right?
yep.
There was no Uber or Lyft back then. You couldn't call Uber and say, "Can I get get me to base?" So I'm assuming, and from what I heard, our captain's wife and a bunch of the other officers' wives became like a liaison for the troop wives.
Hmm.
They had set up like a call roster where, and then that I guess that next day, my captain's wife started reaching out to the different Marines' wives that were in the unit that were local and stuff like that. So
Yeah. What is it called? Frost call?
yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You
yeah,
one person calls you, you call three. They each call three.
so we ended up over in Saudi Arabia. Um, we went to a Ramco oil company's headquarters. There was
Really?
no like tanks or pipes there. It was just their headquarters building, and it was just offices. And they
If
said,
that
okay,
doesn't tell you why you're fighting that war, you don't know what does tell
right.
you, right?
So we're like, okay, they're like, go ahead and make yourself comfortable. And it's cold. It's cold.
Really?
It's cold. It's December over there. It's November over there. It's cold in that desert. It's
Wow.
cold. And
I wouldn't have
tomorrow,
expected that.
this is at night when we land. So everything's foreign to us and it's dark.
Yep.
So we figure out we find unlocked doors, we unlock more doors, and we're sleeping in offices next to cubicles and suspended between 2 chairs and doing whatever. But it's climate controlled and okay, cool. The power was still on, and we stayed there for about 3 weeks, I think it was, eating MREs for those 3 weeks. And then we started
Just
moving forward.
just destroying their heads too.
Yeah, yeah. And learning what prayer's call is.
Yep.
We had never heard prayer's call before, and here it is. It's this big loudspeaker, going off, and it's like, what the hell is that? Come to
Yep.
find out, that young PFC who got married to the stripper the day we were leaving was from Saudi Arabia. He spoke Farsi.
No shit.
Yeah, so he's our educator.
He became the most important man there.
Became too important. He got stolen from us, and I'll tell you
Really?
later. Yeah, he got taken from us. He was too important. Nobody knew he could speak the language. Nobody knew that's where he was actually from. A lot of his
Damn.
family still lived in Saudi Arabia. But yeah, so we only stayed there for a couple weeks. Then we moved forward, and that's when we started living in the dirt. And we didn't stop living in the dirt until May of 1991. It was crazy. It was a long time living in the dirt. I mean, showering maybe once every 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and that was with just canteen shower. You got 4 naked Marines standing out there with a little bar of soap and somebody holding the canteen cup over the top of their head. Okay, here's your wash. Give me the next canteen. Here's your rinse. All right, I'm gonna
Yep.
get naked now. You do mine. It
Yep.
just the way it was. You didn't wash your clothes, and we're in the middle of burning oil well fires, so everything is black soot on everything. Your face, your food, I
Yeah.
learned how to eat with sand in every bite. Just don't chomp down so hard because there's gonna be sand in everything you eat every single time. It was crazy.
Did you ever have a moment where you thought, shit, this might be it?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, a lot of
Because
a
I
lot of
mean,
build up, a lot of
so
build up, a lot of letdown. I mean, the what the intelligence was telling us and
mhm,
what we were being told and what we were training for was 100% 180 degrees opposite of what the reality is of what happened.
right,
And so we have a very large expectation, being ground troops, that with these fortified positions that they have built and with these layers of concertina and oil well fired ditches and landmines and all these different breach elements that we have to go through, that we could lose up to 50% of our troops just getting through the breach. And
right.
if we make it through one breach, the next breach is worse, and so on and so on. And we were told that they had actual breach lines that were filled with oil that they were going to light on fire as the next breach. Where it would
Yeah,
be
that's
uncomfortable. Yeah.
that does. I mean, and that's what I was. I was, of course, a couple years later, but all my NCOs had been over there, and that's very reminiscent. What they all said was it was a huge amount of build up to a huge amount of just like
Yeah.
there's not a lot to this.
I mean,
Um,
we hit some stuff, but not with the build up of expectation that we thought we were going to hit. Did we encounter some enemy? Sure. Did we go through some breaches? Sure. Did we take some fire? Sure. Did we return some fire? Sure. But nothing like, I mean, and I'll tell you, in all reality, the very first fighting hole we got to, at the two ends of it and in the center of it, was 50 cal anti-aircraft guns.
no shit.
If those were actually manned
Yeah.
and they didn't surrender before us getting there, and they actually used those
Ooh,
armor-piercing rounds through the tracks, blah, blah, there'd have been devastation.
that'd have been
The
a meat
sor-
grinder.
yeah, the sorties is what saved the grunts' asses. It was all the sorties they flew and all the bombing they did for 30 days straight. I don't know how many missions they threw. Just thousands of missions. We were watching it like an air show at night. They'd come in, you'd see like three fighter jets come in, and you see the bombs come out, and then you'll see the explosions, then you'll see that jet straight up chaff out of its ass, so it doesn't take any anti-aircraft, and it was just like an air show for us. We were just watching it all the time. That's how close we were to the line. And if it wasn't for all that, the first day of that war would have been absolutely different. Absolutely
Did
different.
you have? Did you ever have a come to Jesus moment where you thought, "Oh shit, like I might not make it out of here"?
Um, no, you know what? I will tell you, I really trusted the people that was with me, the people that we were surrounded by. I didn't trust my lieutenant worth a shit, but everybody else I trusted really, really well.
The
No,
lieutenant. What do you
I
expect?
did not trust him at all. Yeah, if I could have just left him in a tracked vehicle and closed the lid and be done with him, I would have done that. And I think most people in the platoon would have been that way. But other than that, I felt confident in the people we had around us. I felt confident in the gear that we were using. The only piece of gear that we were using that had no confidence to it whatsoever was the GPS.
Hmm.
And it wasn't any fault of the gear, and it wasn't any fault of the people using it. It was just the fact that the skies were black with smoke. GPS works off of satellite. The signal getting to that satellite was interfered with dramatically
Really?
because of all the black smoke. Yeah. So the GPS coordinates were horrible. I mean, we were off of different locations where we thought we were supposed to be because of GPS. Probably by the middle of day one, they scrapped the GPSs and just went back to old-fashioned maps.
Really?
Yeah,
Damn.
yeah,
I didn't realize the smoke had that much of an impact.
yeah, yeah. It was
Huh.
pretty bad.
So you were there till May. Do you remember the point where you finally got the word like, okay, we're going home?
Um, well, we the original that came down, we after the ceasefire, we were sitting perimeter on Kuwait City, and we were told that once the liberation happens, the Kuwaiti military is going to sit perimeter on their own, and we should be done in 2 weeks, and we'll be out of there. And we're like, okay, not bad. That didn't happen. It was months still sitting around
Never,
Kuwait City.
never goes the
You know,
way it's supposed to.
I mean, the war was fought and over in 1 month of January, and we
Yeah, I
were
was gonna
still
say because I remember January being January '91, right?
Yep. So we were still sitting. May is when we pulled out of that position. We went back to the rear. What was so weird is when we went back to the rear, it was that same Ramco facility,
Huh.
but now it was Camp Leatherneck.
Really?
Thousands of tents, concrete floors, shitters built, a chow hall, a gymnasium to go work out in. This same place. The Marine Corps came in and made it Camp Leatherneck. And so the whole time we were away from it, this is what they did to it. And we only spent about 5 days there.
That's fascinating too, because of course in Afghanistan, the largest FOB was Camp Leatherneck as well.
Yep.
Nothing for originality, huh?
Right.
All right, so you get that, God, and that time frame waiting to go home sucks too. It seems like things just drag on. What was your expectations going back to the States? Were you expecting to do a few more months, or were you expecting to pretty much step out, or not? To separate as soon as you got back, or?
So I thought I was going to do my full 6-month extension, which was probably going to put me until. Well, no, it should have been right around June. So that would have been appropriate timing wise. I had an opportunity when I got back to decide whether I wanted to reenlist when we got back or get out. I made the decision while we were sitting around Kuwait City that this was not going to be what I was going to do for the rest of my life.
And you're sitting there just going, I'm not doing this for the rest of my life.
Right. Right. So I made that decision then. So anybody who was on stop loss, I was beyond my extension period. I was on stop loss now only. The day we got home was our separation day. So
Damn.
we got the buses picked up at the airport. There you go. No news, no TVs, no newspapers, no anything. We have no idea what's going on back in America. And we get out of the airport, and the street between that airport and Camp Lejeune is lined with patriots. Welcome home, banners and balloons, and all the way on to base. When we get home on base, there's 1,000 people in the parking lot waiting for us. My dad was in the parking lot.
No shit.
I hadn't spoke to my dad in like 2 years. I don't even know how they got a hold of my dad. I don't know how my dad figured out we were coming home that day, but my dad was there. And he took me and like 5 of my other Marines out to dinner that night. But I had to report back in at 08 the very next morning to see the XO, which was my old platoon commander that I liked. And I walk in and I'm like, "Sir, I guess this is it." He says, "Yeah." He says, "You're out." And I'm like, "Okay." I said, "What do I got to do?" I said, "What do I got to do?" He says, "Well," so it was just him and an admin clerk. We turned our weapon in when we got back the night before. Yeah. And then we stored all of our sea bags and packs and everything in this locker room. And he says, "Well, just go get your gear. Come back over here. We'll check you out, and you'll be a civilian." I said, "Okay." So I got my gear. I came back. I got my 782. I've got my pack. I've got my everything, and I've got 2 sea bags.
Welcome back. Thanks for your service. Get the fuck out.
Yep. And that was it. And the only thing that was the oddest thing about it was they back then it's the ball typewriter, and they're doing the GDC-14. It's not on a computer. It's just type. Yep. And the admin clerk's over there typing, and he's like, "Okay, so we don't know any awards. We don't know any of this. We don't know any of this. We don't know anything yet, right? Because we're just getting home." So awards and all that stuff all gets left blank. But there's a comment section in the DD-214 for whoever to leave comments. And I think it was Lance Corporal, the admin clerk. He's like, "So, sir, what do you want me to put in the comment section?" He goes, "I don't know."
War hero.
He says, I don't know what's put in there. He says, "Martin, what do you think we should put in there?" I'm like, "Shit, sir, I don't know. Served in Desert Storm, Desert Shield, was there from this
Thank
state.
God you put that.
Yeah.
Thank God you put that.
Desert Shield, Desert Storm, deployed on this date, came home on this date, was exposed to toxic oil well fires, and whatever else you can think of, sir." So that's exactly what my comment section says. Luckily, everyone that came behind me got that same comment.
So the interesting thing about that is I have this sneaky suspicion if you hadn't put that there, you'd have been fighting with the VA for years to get any benefits.
No doubt. Because I still don't have a DD-214, even though I've requested a DD-215 for upgrade that says that we've received the Kuwait Liberation Medal, we received the Saudi Arabia,
Wow.
None of that.
Wow.
I only found out I had a car because of the national database.
That is so insane because I retired in 13, and by then it was such a well-oiled machine. When you came back, you had to have enough time to go through separation classes. There's so much that's built into it now that it's amazing to hear stories like that where you had nothing.
Nope.
I mean, literally, they said, "Hey, welcome back. Great fucking job. Get the fuck out."
Yep. If you don't want to stay in, you don't want to be with us. We don't want to be with you. Have a good day. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, so what, sir? What are you gonna do about all this gear? He's like, I don't know what you're talking about, Corporal Martin. I'm like, all right, sir. So I took all my 782 gear with me.
Holy shit.
Yeah. There was no process to take it back in. I mean, I know nowadays you lose a piece of gear, they won't even let you out.
Oh yeah, you ain't going anywhere.
But back then we just walked with our gear.
So that's just nuts. Are you still friends with anybody you served with during that time frame?
Yeah. My XO, my CO, my CO comes to the bar. He didn't know I owned the bar. He's sitting at the bar one day, and he's talking to my manager, and I'm sitting down at the end of the bar having a beer. It's later in the evening. He's here with his wife, and my manager was saying, "Hey, who'd you serve with? Blah 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 blah." And he's like, "Oh, back in the day, I was with a trial unit, 1st Battalion, 8th Marines, Delta Company. It was Desert Storm era." And he's like, "Oh, really cool, sir. Thank you for your service. Appreciate you very much." And that was kind of it. And then the gentleman came down and he kind of hung out on the corner where the 3 or 4 of us were talking, joined in our conversation with us for about a half hour or so, and went back and sat with his wife. And my manager comes over and he says, "Hey, boss, the gentleman you were just talking to, did you talk to him about his service?" I'm like, "No, we were just shooting the shit about whatever we were shooting the shit about." And he's like, he said he was with Delta Company 1-8. And I'm like, "Nah, he's too old. Got to be my age, right?" He's like, "Well, that's what he said." I'm like, "All right, I will talk to him." So I go behind the bar. I'm like, "Sir, I heard that you were with Delta Company 1-8 back in the day." And he goes, yeah, back early, late 90s or early 90s. And I'm like, "Yes, sir, I'm very familiar with it." He goes, "You are?" I'm like, "Yes, sir, I actually was in Delta 1-8. And he goes,
"What a world."
"What'd you do?" I said, "I was a 2nd squad leader of 1st Platoon." He goes, "Corporal Martin?" And I'm like, "Yes, sir."
Shit.
I'm like, "And I'm sorry, sir, I don't recognize you." He says, "I'm Greg." And it just clicked. I'm like, "Wait, Gregory Sumner?" He goes, Yeah. Captain Sumner?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "You're my old CO." He goes, "I know." I'm like,
I know, no shit.
How many times you been to this bar? He says, "I've probably been here 3 or 4 times in the last couple of years." I'm like, "You had no idea I owned it?" Yeah, so he's just kind of. So now, anytime he comes to town, he texts me first. "Hey, I'm on my way. I'll be there for a few days. I'll stop in and see you in a couple of the days." So it's great. We did a reunion here.
That is super cool.
We brought about 20 of our Marines here for a reunion. So got to see all the guys from way back in the day. And, it was so cool. I mean, I host reunions for a living. That's what I do. That's one of the number one businesses we do here. Mm-hmm. But I've never done one for myself. So because we were stationed in Camp Lejeune, I just assumed when my unit's ready to have a reunion, we're all going back east. Well, they got wind that I had this bar, so they're like, "Why don't we just all go to Vegas?"
Why don't we do it there?
So they did, and it was so much fun. It was
That is
30 years
cool.
go by. Yeah, but it's like it was the day before. It's like we all just saw each other just a couple weeks ago.
So, all right. So it's June of '91. What happens then? I mean, you had to be like, holy shit, what do I do?
Well, my wife had driven to North Carolina.
Hold on a second. When did you get married?
Oh shit! I got married before I went
You
to the Marine
skipped
Corps.
that part.
I've been married this whole time.
You've been married the whole time. Okay.
I've been married this whole time. Wasn't married longer after that, but I've been married this whole time. And so we had a little Nissan pickup truck, and so we drove it back to Colorado, and got back to Colorado, and found out my wife was pregnant, and it wasn't from me.
I was going to say those months don't quite add up, right?
Yeah, and I thought I'd be a really swell guy and stick it out and see if I could make this work and
that's tough.
I just realized I'm not that swell of a guy.
And you're not nearly that forgiving.
I'm just not that forgiving, and I thought I was going to be able to be, but I wasn't. I didn't. It's funny. I mean, if it would have happened to me before going over to Desert Storm, I probably would have been a little more forgiving. But after being over there for 6 months, and just everything and every attitude at this moment was like, I don't care. I don't care. You can say whatever you want to say. I don't fucking care. It doesn't bother me.
So
yeah.
So let's sit on that one for a second. From your perspective, especially looking back now, how did that 8 months, eight or 9 months, change you?
Of all of the things, it probably changed me the most to be super, a matter of fact, super aggressive toward things I don't like, and to not let something dwell very long.
Okay.
Because I think that's all we did over there was we let things dwell all the time. It was just there was no motion, there was no movement, there was no this. You didn't like something, sit on it.
Interesting.
There was nothing you could do about it. You didn't like it, sit on it.
You had no control, so you have control.
And the people that you hoped had controls, they didn't have controls either.
Yeah.
And so after leaving there, it's like, whatever I'm in control of,
I will control it.
I will control it. I will move it down the path as rapidly as I can. And if I can't control it, fuck it. I don't want anything to do with it.
That's an interesting insight. I never really considered from that angle, and that makes a lot of sense.
It was just, it's easier after having no control for so long. And I didn't feel that way before I went there. When I went there, well, I'm in military control. Military control is what I do. They tell me when to wake up. They tell me when to go to sleep. They tell me what barracks room I'm going to live in. They tell me what chow hall to go to. I get all that. No problem. Over there was so little control of anything. Are you going to get water this week? We don't know.
Maybe.
Well, so you have one extra water jug that's 5 gallons, and that has to be between 13 Marines of a squad, and they currently all have 2 full canteens
in Saudi Arabia,
and we're eating MREs.
Oh,
so, and then this is the time with dehydrated pork patties, dehydrated beef patties, ham and choke loaf. I mean, the meals were not good, and everything was dehydrated. It could be dehydrated. Fruit, we had a fruit
with
cocktail
water.
With water, right? So everybody is just eating dry. You're eating the pork patty dry. You're eating the fruit dry. You're eating everything is
of course
dry.
It's dehydrating the crap out of you.
Makes it even worse. So luckily, a water bowl comes by maybe 3 days later, and everybody gets to fill back up again. And that's the day if you can rinse off anything, if you can wash anything that day, your face, whatever, that's the day you do it. Because you can walk right back up to that son of a bitch and fill up again. But as soon as it's gone, there's no control when it's coming back.
Hmm.
So, they say what, beans, bullets, and logistics, or beans, bullets, and bandages. I mean, we had tons of bandages. We just didn't need them. We had no
Right.
beans, and we had more than enough bullets.
No, that's a really interesting observation. I never really considered that before because you have no control. It'll happen when it happens. If it doesn't happen, it won't happen. So you learn to deal with that, and then when you get back to a point where you can control it, oh, I'm gonna fucking control it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's interesting.
When I've had a couple of businesses, and I've always tried to have a business partner, and I've realized I can't do business partners because of that exact reason.
All right, so now you're in Colorado.
Yep.
Well, what are you doing for work?
Security, AT&T.
Okay.
AT&T headquarters is there. I'm a young Marine right out of war. I can almost get any job I want that has to do with security in that town. They're just hiring. You're military. You what you've been doing for the last 6 months has been plastered all over the news. You can get a job anywhere. It ain't like Vietnam era. They love us now when we come home.
How long did the marriage last once you were in Colorado?
3 months.
Did you have any other kids Did you have any kids at all from that, or
Nope.
None? Okay.
None.
So
and
3 months.
Yeah, and she wanted to name it the name that we had thought of for having a child. The years passed and all this stuff, and I'm like, I mean, you're gonna rub some salt in something. Go ahead, just keep rubbing it in.
That's tough. Wow. Okay. So the next few years, where'd you go from there?
Straight to Vegas.
Really?
I had family that lived in Vegas.
Okay.
I was still freshly out of the military.
Like Vegas, early 90s. Totally different.
Yep. It was totally different. I worked on my very first job was at the Golden Nugget Casino downtown.
Security?
Security. Yep. Making $8.50 an hour, working graveyards. This is back before there was a canopy. Cars were actually going down Fremont Street at that time in front of the casinos. And it was a rootin' tootin', gun toting security type of situation down there. And you took no crap from anybody. And I realized that during the Rodney King riots. A lot of people don't know that Vegas during the Rodney King riots got hit really, really hard.
I don't recall that. Okay.
Yeah, they burned down like half of North Vegas. Their own community. They burned down their own community, just like they did.
I never understood that, but yeah.
But
I mean, don't get me wrong. If I'm ever in a position where I feel like I need to burn some shit down, it's going to be somebody else's neighborhood.
Well, but I learned that the reason they were burning their own neighborhoods down was because their economic and their neighborhoods that was supplying them were so run down, and the only way that they were ever going to get rebuilt was to torch them, and then get the insurance and have the government help and do this, and that whole part of town is beautiful, rebuilt better, and grander than it was. So they got exactly what they wanted from it.
Yeah. Interesting.
But they were going to march down to Fremont Street during the riots.
Okay.
And that's when I was working security, and they took us down to the basement of the hotel, and they opened up this vault, and they're just full of pistols. And they're like, "Who here's prior military?" Like 90% of us raise our hand. They're like, "Grab one." Like, okay.
Damn.
Like, got a holster? He's like, "Put it in your back." I'm like, all right. Nobody comes through the doors of this casino. No problem. Understood. If we would have shot somebody, I'll promise you nobody would have gotten in trouble for it. Luckily, they didn't march on Fremont Street. We didn't have to worry about it. But yeah, that's how serious they took it, though.
How long did you do security work for the casinos?
I was there for about, I guess, 2.5 years. About 2.5 years.
What did you do after that?
Ended up, had a friend that worked for a medical company called Hillrom. Hillrom, if you're ever in a hospital and you're ever laying in a bed, and you ever have the tray table that comes over the top of you with your tray of food on it, the bed is Hillrom, the tray is Hillrom, the wall console behind you is all Hillrom. It's the largest manufacturer in the United States and actually throughout the world for hospital equipment. They do the beds, they do the intercom systems, they do the walls, they do everything. The OR
What'd you do
suites,
for
all
them?
that stuff. I was actually a service technician.
Seems like an odd. I mean, just because your friend was doing it.
That it was it. My friend was doing it. He says, "Look," he says, "you'll make about $3 an hour more than doing security. You're going to go to a class
Don't have to put up
in
with assholes.
yeah, go to a class in South Carolina for 3 weeks. When you graduate that, you're a full-fledged technician. You drive a truck around. You go work on equipment. You deliver equipment. You pick equipment up. That's all you got to do." So I did.
Is that what you did for the remainder until you started? We'll get to where you get to the bar, but I mean, how long did you do that for?
Yeah, I was a technician with that company for about 6 years,
Okay.
and then I became a what they called a continuous improvement consultant for that company. I went to the teachings of Toshiono and Toyota Production System, and learned the Kaizen principles of business
Yep.
management and waste management. And so I studied that for a year, and then I became a consultant traveling the country every week and going in and implementing the Kaizen principles throughout the company. And I did that for
Interesting.
about 5 years.
So that would have put you. Let's see, 91, so 92. So we're at there. We're right about after the 2000s, right? Early
Yep.
2000s.
Yeah, early 2000s. And then I stayed with that same company, and I moved into a role of a regional director of operations for them for the Western United States.
Damn.
And this is a company that allowed me to promote from within with no college and a GED. And they're a Fortune 500 company. They are a sister company to Batesville Casket, the largest casket distributor in the country. Done every president since I think Franklin Roosevelt has been buried in a Batesville casket. Yeah, so I used to go to Batesville, Indiana, at least once a month for meetings, and yeah, it was just so I took care of the whole Western United States.
So I take it. I assume you retired out of that business.
I did. Yep.
Okay.
At about the age of, I was about 47, I think, when I did that. 40, 45, somewhere right around there. Yeah. So vested in the company, did a retirement for them. So
I'm gonna guess. So we'll have to rewind a few years to get back to. Did you end up? I'm assuming you got married again because you said you had stepkids
I've been married twice since then.
twice since then. Okay.
I married a rebound. When I divorced the first wife, got to Vegas, I met a lady at the casino. She worked at the casino too. She worked at the Cage where they handle all the money. She was about 17 years my senior, and she bought me a truck. And
taught you a few things, didn't she?
She wined and dined me for a little while, and we got married. About 7 months later, I realized she didn't want a husband; she wanted another kid. So that we were able to end that divorce pretty quickly and without any issues. So, and then I ended up marrying the woman I'm with now, who I've been with now for 27 years.
How'd you meet her?
The medical company.
Okay.
She was a nurse working for that company that I was working for on the service side of it.
What's your favorite thing about her? Wait.
Oh, her attitude. She is absolutely ornery. She absolutely ornery. It's one of those love-hate things. I love her to be the way she is to everybody else, but not to me. She's a New Yorker, Italian New Yorker.
Okay.
She just takes no guff from anybody. No, nothing.
And I can appreciate that. Any kids there?
No, I've never had any kids of my own. Yep.
Did you have stepkids though?
Yeah, 2 boys.
Were you their father figure for the majority of their life, or?
No, I didn't move into their life till they were in their mid-teens. So
That's tough.
It was a tough
Especially
period.
boys.
Yeah, very tough
I
period.
gotta think.
It was hard because I'm the outsider, and in all reality, their dad was just not a good dad. So I think at a certain point they felt as though mom was trying to replace dad with me because he wasn't a good dad. So they wanted to love dad even more. and in their eyes, you know, they made up excuses why their dad was a bad dad, to appease their own souls, I believe. But yeah, he was not a good dad. Not abusive, nothing like that. He was just a flake.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
if he said he was going to do something, he didn't do it. If he said he was going to show up and take him somewhere, he didn't do it. And it was just let
Mm.
down after let down after let down, you know? So it was a really tough time for them. And it made a very tough relationship between me and them as well.
So you retired at 47. Um, did you immediately pick up the bar, or what
I,
happened then?
I was already managing, or I was volunteering at the bar.
Okay, so the bar's been in existence longer than Ghost.
Oh, the bar's been here 38 years.
Okay,
Yeah.
so 38, that's 2004. So we're talking, crap, that's some math. 20,
Yeah.
30, 30, 86, roughly.
Roughly. They did their official grand opening in 1991, right after Desert Storm. But they were
Okay.
already here in existence as a Marine Corps League prior to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you end up buying it?
I ride a motorcycle. Rode motorcycles. I don't ride anymore. And there was a motorcycle club called the Marine Riders that met out of this bar,
Still in
and
existence today, right?
still to this day, yeah. I
Because
was
I remember
president.
Leroy had the patch.
Yep, I was their
Yep.
president for a long time.
Okay.
And so, anyways, I got invited to come check them out, and this was the location they were having their meeting at. So I came down, and kind of the bar is nothing like you saw it back then. You know, it's just it's a VFW, American Legion, Marine Corps League vibe. You know, three old dudes at the bar smoking stogies. You know, looking at everybody like, "What are you doing in my bar, kid?" You know, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. No food back then. A volunteer bartender behind the bar, somebody's wife, you know, and that's just the way they ran it back then. But it was a cool place, and
Yeah.
some of the memorabilia was here. They didn't utilize the museum side. They had a wall up all the time, so all you saw was the bar side, and they had the doors locked to come into the museum side unless they rented it out for an event. And we later took that wall down just so it could be the whole facility. But yeah, so that's I kind of fell in love with it. I just started becoming a patron every once in a while. Usually because of the Marine Riders, we'd make this a starting point for a ride or an ending point for a ride. And I liked business. I like being part of business. I like understanding business. Coming from the continuous improvement consultant standpoint, my job was to analyze business. That's what I did all the time. And then becoming a regional director, that's what I did. I analyzed the business all the time. And I just kept looking at this place like, man, what a waste.
This could be something.
This could be something. I mean, this could truly be something. What a waste. And at that time, you know, white tile floors, you know, smoke stained ceilings. You know, half the bottles on the bar had somebody's name on them so that they could come in and drink for free when they came in. I mean, they're not making any money. They're not, you know, they're barely
Right.
keeping the power on. And I just kept watching. I just kept watching. And finally, I'm like, hey, would you guys mind if I kind of came in and just showed you some of the things that I've learned over time? It's not bar specific, but it is business specific, and it might help you guys and stuff. And as I started diving deeper into it and deeper into it, I realized that they had no desire to go down that path at all because they were happy the way it was. It's our own private little thing. Nobody knows about it except for us. Nobody's going to come here that we don't know, and that's the way they wanted it to be. And so let it be that way for a lot of years. And about 15 years ago, right around 15 years ago, I made a serious offer that they couldn't refuse.
But 2008, 2009-ish?
Yeah, right around there. And I was like, let me see what I can do. And
So how long did you stay retired before you picked that place up full time?
0. I mean, I said I was retired. I didn't say I stopped working. 2012 is when I legitimately stopped working.
Okay.
2012. I said, that's it. I'm done. That's also the same year, my very first year I ever went to the VA. I'd never been to the VA prior to that. And yeah, everything that year for me was okay, new life. Let's start. something different. Didn't know it was going to be the bar exactly at that time, but it was there. It was on the horizon. I could feel it was going to be coming. I just didn't know when it was going to be coming.
All right, so bar years here. What was how long did it take you to get it to the point where you're like, okay, and maybe you're not there yet, but you're like, this is what I was looking for.
It probably a good 4 to 5 years. A good 4 to 5 years. Somewhere around 2018, 2019, I was like, okay, this is absolutely the path we should be on, and we're starting to see the benefits from what we're doing. And the number one benefits that we were seeing that made the most dramatic effect was visitation. People hearing about the bar, learning about the bar, somebody talking about the bar, and somebody different walking into the bar.
So it wasn't that people came there because they knew about it and it was convenient. It was that they were coming there to come there.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
and we got it to the point because we opened the restaurant, so we had a full-time cook. You know, we had real bartenders. We were running a real business, and the locals were starting to notice, and they were now starting to be willing to drive from the other side of town to the location to have dinner, have a couple drinks with their buddies, and because nobody prior to me ever did any social media or anything like that, there was no knowledge of this place outside the Las Vegas Valley unless somebody from Las Vegas moved somewhere else and was telling people about it.
Yeah.
So, social media, website, all that became my number one focus. The systems are in place. We were operating as a business. We have food going. We have drinks going. You know, we're on payroll. We're paying our bills. We're doing everything like that. Now, it's all about social media. Now it's all about how do we get the word out so other Marines can learn about this place. And again, we're not fully the design we are now. We're still, you know, white floors, white ceilings, smoking everywhere. We haven't made those changes yet. Those are all still coming. But that was when I'm like, you know what? There's enough of a desire for this bar that it could grow into something.
I don't remember honestly when it first caught my attention, but I will say as soon as I saw it and I saw the way you presented it, I was like, okay, when I'm in Vegas, I'm stopping in.
Yeah, thank you.
Like I wasn't going to Vegas for the purpose, but if I was there, I was definitely going to stop in, and I'm glad I did.
That's what we are all year long, except for SHOT Show and the Marine Corps birthday. The rest of the year, it's like, I'm going to Vegas. I'm going to be in Vegas because of this. And while we're in Vegas, you're on our destination list. You know, I got to go to the Hoover Dam. I got to go to the Leatherneck Club. I got to go to the Sphere. You know, I got to do these things. And people do have this as part of their itinerary of their 3-4 days, whatever they're going to be in Vegas. This is part of their plan.
So the Marine Corps birthday obviously makes sense. What is it about SHOT Show specifically that's a big event for you? Other than the fact it's guns. I mean, everybody loves guns. Fuck
yeah, it's the largest dealer show, and it's open only to dealers for armament, weapons, ammunition, all these different things. All the newest gadgets for all of these weapons and all the newest weapons get launched during SHOT Show. And it's a time where if you are a gun range owner, or if you are this, or you know, you make swivels for a sling or whatever, this is when people are writing POs. And as a gun range, you're committing right now that you're going to buy over the next 12 months X amount of this weapon. And that's where they do all those deals at. And a lot of the booths there are double decker. Upstairs is the office space. Downstairs is where you see all the weapons. So I didn't even know what a big deal it was. I just thought, okay, SHOT Show's in town. It's just another convention that comes to Vegas. Didn't even think about it. And we got approached by a gentleman who is an Army Green Beret, and he was a startup company that couldn't go to any of the fun parties that SHOT Show was throwing. He wasn't big enough to go to Remington. He wasn't big enough to go to Glock. He wasn't big enough to go to any of the big manufacturers. He was a small deal. and he was just getting his feet in the door, and he was spending the big money to have a booth at SHOT, but he just couldn't get networked enough to go to the big events. And he called us and said, I want to do a SHOT Show kickoff party. And here's what I want to do.
That's got to be a hit. A bunch of gun dealers who are also former Marines.
Yeah. So and he said, I want to do a SHOT Show kickoff party. Nobody in town's doing one. It's the day before SHOT Show starts. SHOT Show starts on Tuesday morning. I want to do it on Monday night for everybody who flew in on Monday to get their booth set up and have nothing to do that night.
Oh, and that's brilliant.
And I'm like, okay, what do you want to do? He's like, I'll give you $5,000 for booze and $3,000 for food. Can you make that work? I'm like, we'll make it work.
Hell yeah.
And about 250 people came. And we didn't use all the money, and I gave him, and I gave him back, the amount of money that we didn't use for what we didn't sell. And he says, next year, bigger, better. I'm like, no problem. The first year, it was everybody he knew in the industry. And it was Green Beret buddies. It was, Ranger buddies. It was this buddies. This knife guy over here and this guy over here, blah, blah, blah. The next year, I've got Kyle Carpenter here. I got Dakota Meyer here. I've got Zach Brown Band here. I've got all these different people in this place. It took him 1 year to grow from that to this.
How many years have you been doing it?
This will be our 7th year this year doing it. 7th or 8th year.
Man, that's going to be a rage and block party by now.
It's crazy. And so not that we only do the one night now. Force Recon Sniper Foundation said, hey, you're a Marine bar. You're in Vegas. We've been coming to the SHOT Show kickoff party for the last number of years. We have our own booth at SHOT. Wednesday night, we want to invite everybody to a party. And we're like,
all right, man, I got to know what week is this? Because I got to block this off my schedule.
It's the week of January 20th this year. So the 20th is the Monday night. Yeah, January 20th. Both organizations are already locked on for this year to do it. And it's the who's who. Okay, I'll step backwards. The reason that Monday night became so popular was because the gentleman's vision, because he couldn't get into Glock, he couldn't get into Remington, he couldn't get into all the big days. There was 1,000 vendors that felt just like him.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And that's who he catered to. Now those vendors are big time in the SHOT industry.
Wow.
Because they've grown.
That's brilliant.
When they grew, they continued to only invite not only people they grew up with, but now they're inviting the younger ones who can't go to the big parties either.
Oh,
so
man,
it continues to just churn and get bigger and bigger every year. And the people that are here are just top quality people. They might be law enforcement, they might be hunters, they might be, military, they don't know. But they all are part of the culture.
So, if I remember right, when I was talking to you when I was there that night, you have the Marine Corps ball, which is a couple thousand Marines.
1,200 Marines for the ball.
1,200 Marines. SHOT Show's got to be that or bigger.
SHOT Show, I'll tell you, the flow of the evening. We start around 4:00 in the evening. We go till about 1:00 in the morning. Probably close to 1,000 to 1,200 people through the doors that day. Yeah.
Wow.
And it's a day we're closed on anyways, so we're not open in the morning. We don't open until SHOT that day for the party. Yeah, the Marine Corps birthday. So the ball is done by the Marine Corps League. The birthday is done by the Leatherneck Club. So I don't care what day of the week the birthday falls on. That's the day we're having our birthday. So this year it happens to be on a Sunday. It is what it is. Yep. That's the day we're having our party. Everybody's like, "You gonna do it on Friday?" No, that's the 8th.
Sunday.
Oh, so you're gonna do it Saturday? I'm like, no, it's the 9th. Yeah. Sunday the 10th. Yes, we're doing it the 10th.
Remember the date?
Yeah. And everybody's like, okay. That
goes back to that thing where you control it, so it's on the 10th, damn it.
That's correct. It's on the 10th. But it'll start on Friday. And it'll roll all the way through Veterans Day on Monday. So in that weekend, we'll probably see close to 5,000 people through our doors in a weekend.
That's crazy.
And no staff is allowed to be off. I put beer trailers in the parking lot. $40 gives you a wristband, all the draft beer you can drink. It just keeps my bartenders from being busy. Let them make mixed cocktails. You want to drink beer? Give me $40. Go drink all you want.
Wow.
I'll stock 20 kegs on that trailer.
That's crazy. That is
Yeah.
so cool. Wow. So what does the next 10 years hold for you?
Retirement.
I was gonna say, I think
It's
getting about to that point, right?
it's close. We just bought land in Wyoming. We're going to be moving to a small town called Thermopolis, a town of about 1,700 people, only known for thermal hot springs and fishing in the river for trout. That's all that's there.
What else do you need?
I don't need anything else. That's it. The land we bought 5 acres. We're just a stone's throw from the river. Get on a quad, roll down to the river, do some fishing, come back, cook it up. So construction will start in 2026, and by 2027, we'll be living up there in the winter and in the summer and wintering back here in Vegas.
Are you thinking about selling the bar,
Yeah.
or are you going to keep it, or
Again, just because it's just because of my personality,
you're not sharing control?
I'm not a remote manager either. I can't do it from a distance.
That's got to be the right person, though. I mean, because you can't go from what you're doing now to not doing what you're doing now. So you got to get the right person to keep going.
They have to keep improving upon it. I mean,
yeah.
And if the people I'm talking to aren't, when they're talking to me, talking about, hey, can you give us a suggestion how we improve this or how we move forward on this? Then I'm not talking to the right people.
Right.
I mean, in anybody who's going to be the purchaser of this, my hope is that they're smart enough to say, will you stay on 6 months as a consultant? Yes, I will. Okay. I've been doing the social media. I've been doing the meet and greets with the patrons. I've been at every veteran event in this town representing the Leatherneck Club. I've been to DC as the Leatherneck Club. I've been to MCRD San Diego as the Leatherneck Club. I've been all over this country as the Leatherneck Club. For me to stand up on a microphone at a birthday and say, ladies and gentlemen, this is my last birthday, and have 2,000 people be like, what the fuck is going to happen now?
Got to have a plan.
Yes.
Got to have something to give them.
And give them something so they don't think, number one, that their artifacts are going to disappear if they donated anything, that there is a viable action moving forward of how this place is going to continue to grow and give you everything it's giving you today, but more in the future. That's the objective.
So the size of your place, though, I mean, I mean, if you're going to continue to grow, or do you think you're going to outgrow the space you're in now?
I will say this, that unless it's the Marine Corps birthday, SHOT Show, or a very large reunion, our bar is never at capacity. So yeah, there's tons of place to remove.
Nice. Okay.
Yep. I would say that on an average day, our facility, except for Fridays, is at 60% capacity. So it's got 40% more growth available on a regular day. There's a few windows on Friday nights where we're at 100% capacity, usually between 5 and 7 p.m. It's social hour. It's when everybody's here. But before that, 60% capacity. After that, 60% capacity. So there's room to grow.
Looking back, what's your favorite memory of the bar? And that's got to be hard to pick. That has to be hard to pick.
Sunday evening has to be 10 years ago, maybe 11 years ago. I'm at home. I'm in shorts and flip-flops on a lazy boy watching TV. My bartender calls me and says, "You're never going to guess who's here." And I said, and she's just texting me. And I'm like, "Who?" She doesn't respond.
Gonna have to come and find out.
Apparently. So we have a mascot bulldog that at that time his name was Smalls. Our new one's name is Archibald. I grab Smalls, jump in the car. I live about 20 minutes away. I come walking in the door. and the bar is dead empty, except for 3 people at the bar and my bartender. And a gentleman gets out of the chair. My bartender says, "There's the boss." He gets out of the chair and he starts walking over, and Smalls, the bulldog, meets him halfway. And he lays on the floor and plays with Smalls for about 5 minutes. Then he gets up and he says, "Hi, I'm Kyle Carpenter." Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah. They were just about to leave. I turned the sign off. I locked one of the doors, left the other door open for an emergency. And I told my bartender to go home. And I went behind the bar. I grabbed us each another beer, got us each a shot, and we sat there for another hour and just shot the shit. Nobody knew about it except the 3 of us, or the 4 of us. The bartender went home. The next day, he posted a photo of me and him on social media here at the Leatherneck Club. And everybody and their brother blamed me for not calling them to come down and hang out with Kyle.
I can imagine.
But
you son of a bitch.
If I had to pick a best day here, I think that was probably my best day.
Wow.
I mean, he's what he went through, what he is to the Marine Corps family today, what he has accomplished since what happened to him. Writing books and doing all the different things he's done. I mean, and just being a role model to show people, you can achieve even after something as traumatic as this. I just felt blessed meeting the guy. And now every time I see him, he comes over and gives me a big hug, and everybody's like, "Hey, can you call Kyle?" I'm like, "No, I'm not calling Kyle for you."
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I should have gone with this first, to be honest with you, because I mean that now I feel like an asshole for going second. But what's the worst moment you've had there?
Every time I disappoint a Marine. It's not one. Every time I disappoint a Marine.
How the hell would you disappoint a Marine?
It happens all the time. A Marine feels like they weren't service was subpar. The bartender ignored them. Everybody, People
are weird, yeah.
Can I control whether that Marine was disappointed or not? Maybe not. But in the world that I'm in and the business that I'm in, when you ask me what my worst days are, it's when we disappoint a Marine. I'll disappoint an airman. I'll disappoint a Navy guy. I'll disappoint an Army guy. I just don't like disappointing Marines because this is their house and they come here to be part of it. It's like going to Disney. If the character at Disney, he lost his head in the middle of dancing around in the street, everybody saw his real face, it'd be a disappointment. At least for the children, it would be, because then it's an unmasked character, right? Well, same thing here. We have flaws. Everybody does. And we're going to make mistakes. Everybody does. I just don't like people to see them.
So retirement's coming up soon.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see retirement as your opportunity to just do some fishing, do some lounging, or do you see something else that it is that you want to accomplish?
I have a 1960 Chevrolet Apache truck.
I gotta Google that. 1960 Chevy Apache truck.
Yep, long bed.
I got nothing.
Chevrolet Apache. You're not getting anything?
No, I'm a slow typer.
Oh.
I remember in high school, I told my typing teacher, I said, I don't need this bullshit. I'll never use this.
Right.
Yeah, that was a mistake.
So yeah, that's going to be my retirement project.
Oh, that's cool.
So between fishing.
That is cool.
Yeah. It's a good old school truck. We're in a part of the country that's not a rust area or anything like that. This truck has always been on the West Coast. It's got a great body on it. It's got a strong motor on it. I'm tearing it down, building it back up.
Have you at all considered the idea of maybe writing down some of your memories? Because you got to have some fucking memories from that club. I mean, your whole life, but especially from the club, people coming in and out of there.
The stories are the one thing that I wish we did a better job at documenting over all this time. I One of the things I'm going to possibly start in this twilight time of my career here is I want to do kind of exactly what you're doing. I just want to call it I don't have a name for it, but it's going to be just like a moment with Ghost. And I want to
Yep.
have a place in the bar where on any given day I meet a veteran, a Marine, and we start talking about a story. I can walk over to the corner and be like, "Hey, would you mind
15-minute
coming over
conversation.
and do a 15-minute conversation with me on a little recording
That is cool.
video?" And then I can upload those little vignettes,
Yeah.
and then start building that little portfolio of stories. Because 100% of the stories right now are reliant upon either a piece of memorabilia that they left or my memory. And as we get older, you know how that's going to work.
Memories of those who served. Yeah, there's so many ways you could go with that. That is
Yep.
cool, and you have the perfect backdrop for it too.
Yeah, I think I guess when I said moment with Ghost, I definitely don't want to use my own name in it, because if it actually works out well, then
It
I
can
want the new
continue.
owners to carry it on.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. That opportunity to keep capturing. One of the coolest things, and this was I used examples of like Sean Ryan's show, but one of the things that really got my attention that made me want to do something like this was they do those living oral histories with like the World War II vets and the Korean vets. Those are
Yeah,
moving. They really are.
every year I don't know if it's on Veterans Day or if it's on Memorial Day. I think it's on Memorial Day, and they have the ceremony at the Washington Monument or the National Monument, and they have these actors, really well-read actors, like a James Earl Jones or something like that, get up and they're talking about the life of a veteran who's sitting in the audience, and it
Mm-hmm.
was the day of D-Day, or it was this or that, and it's that person's life that this actor's portraying in this story that they're reading.
Yeah.
And I can't listen to that without getting goosebumps, a little teary-eyed. And I'm like, when people say, "What else do you want to do with this, Bar Ghost?" Those little things like that.
It's
Capturing, documenting, doing something. We're already capturing the memorabilia, the
Mhm.
artifacts, but we're not getting the human side of those artifacts. We're just
Yeah.
getting the tangible, hard artifacts. I want the
But
story.
it's the stories that go with them that's the important part,
Yeah.
really.
And I
Hey.
get to hear them because when I'm accepting those things, hey, this was, I got an M14 on the wall. This bar never had an M14, ever. Of all the artifacts we had in here, not an M14, the number one weapon that was used in Vietnam, right? A gentleman came to this bar. He was from Texas. He was here during SHOT Show, and he owned a gunsmithing shop. And this was in 2019. Yes, January 2019. He was here for SHOT. Said, "You know what? I'm going to work to see if I can get you a weapon for that case." I said, "That'd be great. Thank you so much." It's April of 2020, and we're closed. COVID has us shut down. No guests allowed in, nothing like that. He says, "Hey, this is so-and-so from Texas. I promised you a year ago I was going to get you an M14, blah, 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 blah. We're on our way." And I'm like,
It's fucking.
"You're on with what?" He says, "Yeah, me and my son are driving up from Texas right now. We'll be there tomorrow. We should be to the bar somewhere around noon." I'm like, "Sir, you realize it's COVID and we're not opening." He says, "I don't care.
I don't give a
I got
shit.
an M14. I'm like, "Cool, I don't care either. I'll see you tomorrow at noon." And we came in and he put that in that case, and we took pictures of it and everything like that. I'm like, that's a story.
Yeah.
Of how I got that weapon, right? Or how this
Yeah.
bar got that weapon. I didn't get that weapon. The bar got the weapon. And it's like, that story needs to be told.
No, that's classy. I like that. That's when they read stories like that, that gets to me too. The other thing that really I cannot watch them because I I cry like a baby. Those stupid homecoming videos where people will show up and they'll surprise their family
Oh, I know.
every fucking time. I
And it's
can't
so
do it.
funny because when we came home from Desert Storm, we were greeted with parades. We had, everywhere, every town you went to, there was somebody there waiting to say thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Ribbons and parades, and I'm like, this is crazy because I grew up in a generation where the last war we remembered was Vietnam.
Yeah, and they weren't welcoming them home then.
They weren't welcoming them home back then, and my dad was in Vietnam, and that's what was so. Like I said earlier, my dad was in the parking lot when I came home. And I'm like, holy crap, and my dad felt it was very important to show me that it's not like that anymore.
So that's exactly as I understand it. Talking to different people, I've kind of pieced this together. That's exactly why it was that way. Was because those Vietnam veterans were of the age where they had control. They were like, "This is not going to happen again. This
They
is
were the
bullshit."
parents. They
Yeah,
were
they
the
were the
parents.
parents of those kids that had gone
Yep.
to Desert Storm, and they were like,
Yep.
"No,
Yep.
we are going to do this the right way."
And now Desert Storm parents are the kids of the Iraqi kids.
Yep.
I mean, it's 20 years removed, 20 years Vietnam, 20 years Desert Storm, 20 years Iraqi freedom. It's just
God,
boom, 2020,
a
2020,
war every generation. How sad
every
is that?
generation. And just about the time that your baby's turning 20, there's going to be another war. I mean, that's just the way it's been. I mean,
Yeah.
1950s, right?
I
Korea,
tell you,
1940.
since I've retired, I've become a peace loving hippie. None of it's all bullshit, and it's not worth it. But we continue to do it.
We continue to do it, but now you and me, and a lot of other people our age know why we're doing it. Back then, it was just the machine, and you're part of the machine, and you volunteer to be part of that machine, so we do that. And I have no regrets about what I did.
Oh no, I don't.
If I was 18 years old, I would do it tomorrow.
Yep.
Yep.
No, I'm absolutely. For example, my wife, she works with the school system, and she's asked me a few times to come speak to the students. And don't get me wrong, I'm proud of my service by all means. I got the Marine Corps license plate on my truck, my Jeep, but I have a hard time getting my. I still haven't talked to the students because it's all bullshit. It's like Smedley Butler wrote his book, "War is a Racket."
Right.
It's a fucking racket. That's all it
And
is.
you know what? I won't. And I much prefer talking to somebody about my service and not the war.
Yeah.
I'll tell you about the fun times we had. I'll tell you about the mandatory fun days we had to go to, and I'll tell you about Liberty calls and different ports of calls that we were at around the world during med floats and stuff like that. That's more fun to talk about. That's the reality. That in all reality, that's 90% of being in the military most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a war, and then it's all shitty, and it's all dirty, and it's all money driven, and then we go back to just being in the military again, and go back to ports of call and get drunk and meet hookers and do all those things they do.
There was a point I remember. It was probably 2005, 2006, 2007, somewhere in there, where you had the older generation of Marines who, by that point, most of them had deployed, and you had the newer generation of Marines who were still yet deployed, and they were starting to develop this attitude of like, well, these new Corps Marines are different, and at some point it dawned on me, I was like, you know what? All of us old guys, we joined at a point where we could have joined up and served our 4 years and got our GI Bill, and when 90% chance that we never would have had to sacrifice anything for it. But if you joined up after 2001, there's no fucking doubt what you were going to do.
No, you're going somewhere.
Period.
Yep.
And I have so much. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of problems wrong with that generation, but anybody who joined after 2001, they knew what they were getting themselves into without a shadow of a doubt.
All I hope is, and I know a few that were from, they were brand new during the Desert Storm era, and they stuck it out, and they became a senior enlisted when it got to the OIF OEF time frame.
Mm-hmm.
And they're wearing campaign medals from both of those wars. That they, for those junior Marines coming in 2001, 2002, in that time frame,
took care of
them and taught them the right from the wrong.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you, I went I went a little left on a post I did on my Facebook page about 2 weeks ago, and everybody and their brother's been calling me, "You okay? You okay? You okay?" Like, who disrespected the bar? I'm like, it wasn't about the bar. We did a mess night here for a local truck command. One of the things I love doing. So they come in, they're in uniform, and they're going to drink from the grog, and they're going to have dinner, and we're going to make a really shitty steak for the guest of honor, and all this stuff, right? So we're treated like a real mess night. And other than this bar, these kids would end up doing it out in the field or in a warehouse somewhere. So we give them a place to do it on. And it's great social media for us to take pictures of it when they're not in the private room doing the actual part of the mess night, but when they're around the bar having a drink or whatever, we'll take photos of it. When they're out in front of the bar in formation, we'll take pictures of it. Well, the command directive for that day from the senior enlisted was no covers. You're going to spend most of your...
Bringing cover to that stuff is bullshit anyways, because you can't. Exactly. What are you going to carry on a cover all the time?
So no covers, and we're wearing Charlies because it's summer, it's Vegas, and it's hot.
Fucking hot.
Right? So we put all these photos up on. Really happy to have a house full of Marines last night in uniform, local truck command, blah, 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 having their mess night. And there's 500 comments on this page, on this post. And I would say 75% of them are hoorah, semper fi, love to see it. Hell yeah, these young Marines out there getting it. Have a good time. Fucking bags of shit. Where's their goddamn covers? Look at that fat body in the fucking corner. I'm like, so I let that like stew for like a week. And finally, I just made a post. And I said, you know what? You guys kill me. This bar is trying to uphold the traditions and continuing the esprit de corps and the Semper Fidelis within our brotherhood and sisterhood. Yet I put a post out with some pictures of some Marines, and you sit in your mother's basement and decide that you just want to fucking rag all over these guys. You are what I absolutely hope are a civilian and no longer in our ranks, because I don't want you as their leader. You are not that type of person. The reason you're not in the military anymore is because of the type of person you are being right now in this post.
Yeah.
And I kept going on it. And everybody's like, you okay? And I'm like, no, I'm absolutely fine. Once I got that done, I was fine.
Pissed off.
Dad, man, these kids are doing everything, especially reservists. And I'll say this, especially reservists. These kids play Marine 2 days out of the month and 2 months out of the year. And once every 4 years, they might go on a 6-month deployment.
Yep.
The rest of the time, they're being cops, they're being mechanics, they're being this, they're being that. And they're going to say, okay, hurry up, go get a haircut because you got drill this weekend. Drill starts at Friday at 1600 and doesn't end until Sunday at 2100. And you're going to go be a Marine for a few days. God bless them. Because if shit hits the fan, guess who's going to get called up? Just like they did in Desert Storm, the reservists.
So when I was in Afghanistan, I was around a lot of the reserve units that would come through. And this one Marine in particular was one that kind of it made it apparent to me. It made it stand out to me the paradigm in which he was living. Right, he worked for Apple, and he was making $200 a year. And God bless Apple, they paid him while he was in Afghanistan.
Very lucky.
But what I realized was that is not the case for so many.
Right.
They're working for whatever company making $85,000, $90,000, $100,000 a year. Then they get called up, and they're making PFC Lance Corporal pay.
Yep.
Because their company ain't paying them, and I don't know that I would. I don't know that I would support making companies pay them. I mean, that's a contractual thing between them and the company they work for. But that's a fucking sacrifice. I mean, when
Absolutely.
I went because that was my life. That was my daily job. That nothing changed for me except for the fact I wasn't at home. I mean, that was a big change, but all those other factors, nothing changed. Those reservists, everything changed.
Yep.
I mean, I developed a tremendous amount of respect for the reservists.
Yep. Me too. Me too. I mean, and I luckily here I get to work with them. I love having them here. We got great Marines in Las Vegas. We have not only our recruit or our reservist command. We have one truck, one grunt. We have I&I staff here, and we also have, of course, our recruiter staff here. So I got local Marines all the time that if I need something, it's like they're a phone call away. Like, hey, I need this. I got a young individual in here who wants to talk to somebody about joining the Marine Corps. How he ended up at a bar, I have no idea, but let me get him steered the right way.
Well, if you enter the Marine Corps, a bar is a good place, right?
Well, we do swearing-ins here, so yeah.
Well, we probably should start to wrap this up, but I am curious, looking back now over your life, I mean, you're approaching retirement, you're approaching the point where you can just, it's going to be about you. Is there anything you would have done different?
I think the one thing I would say that I would have done different, but I'm glad I didn't, I would have stayed in. That's what I would have done different. I would have done another 4-year hitch. I would have gotten the rank of sergeant. I would have hopefully been selected to go to the drill field, and then my life would have gone whatever direction I decided to make it go at that time. Because of the circumstances where I was at that time, I didn't go that route. Hindsight, if I did go that route, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now.
True.
So I always say I'm still serving my brothers and sisters. I'm just doing it in a different way now. I'm doing it with food and booze and camaraderie and a place. Instead of being there in the fighting hole with them, I'm just doing it a different way now.
True, very true. No, that's well said. It is amazing just the little things that your circumstances of your life turn upon. And do you toy with the idea of that it would have been cool to do? Sure, but you have to recognize that if you had, you wouldn't be having this thought right now because you'd be doing something completely different.
That's correct.
That's just it's a weird place to find yourself.
Yeah, and I might be happy as hell doing that too. I don't know, but I know that I'm happy doing this.
I mean, you could have stayed in, got on the drill field, got deployed to Iraq, and got whacked.
True.
Who knows?
Absolutely.
I'd say your life would be completely fucking different. It's a world of unknowns. If you were able to meet 17-year-old Ghost, what would you tell him?
Don't get married.
Not yet, at least.
Before you go in the Marine Corps, don't get married. Don't get married. Don't go overseas and get any communicable diseases. Same thing my grandfather told me, but and save for your future. I never had financial life lessons I learned on my own. And I learned after I gave myself bad credit and after I did this and after I did that. So I spent a lot of time in my life repairing myself.
Yep.
And that's probably the number one thing I would make sure that I told myself is at a very young age, you can really screw yourself up for a long time. It's fixable, but it's going to take you a while to fix it. Luckily, it's fixed. You're going to have a nice retirement. But I can imagine how much better that retirement would have been if I would have not screwed it up in the very beginning, right? Yeah.
I've run into a few guys that, for whatever reason, learned that lesson really early, and they could retire at like 41, 42.
And God bless them.
Oh, I know. And just, I mean, reflect upon it now. I mean, holy shit, to be able to live your life doing whatever the hell you want to for that span of your life is what an incredible opportunity.
It's a conversation the wife and I have all the time. It's like, okay, so do we retire when we're crippled or we retire when we're still walking? If we're going to enjoy retirement, we have to do it before a certain time in our life.
Yep.
And pray to God that we stay healthy long enough to enjoy it. And that's why our conversations have come to where they've come now, where it's happening now at a little bit more of a rapid pace. By the time I am 62 years old, I will be done. So probably 61, but yeah.
Well, I guess I should close by just giving you the opportunity to say anything that it is that you want to say.
If you're a veteran, especially if you're a Marine, and you ever want to go somewhere where you feel like you are one of the people, not a number of the people, but one of, check out the Leatherneck Club. I mean, that's my biggest thing. And I appreciate your allowing me to be on here today and giving me the opportunity to talk not only about the Leatherneck Club, but my life and tell my story, like you said. something I can look back on and say, you know what, I I can say the words, but I'll listen to this later and be like, oh, I forgot I said that, and that's cool to be able to do. But yeah, I hope people when they could travel to Vegas, if they love their military, if they are military, especially if they're Marines, stop in, say hello to us. You see me, say, hey, Ghost, how you doing? I am the most approachable individual in this bar. Just make sure I'm not got my hands full of groceries or something when you do it, because then I'm just going to ignore you and keep walking. So,
No, that's absolutely true. I can't echo that enough. I cannot recommend enough. If you make it to Vegas, go hit up the club, go meet Ghost, go meet JP, go meet Leroy if he's sitting there.
yeah,
What a small. I mean, Leroy he's actually a good friend of a very good friend of mine.
small world.
Yeah, super small world. So Semper Fidelis, my friend.
Semper Fi to
Really
you as
appreciate the
well.
opportunity to talk to you, and I'll see you the next time I'm in Vegas.
All right, I appreciate you, brother.